All right, history students. Let's talk about this first formal essay y'all have coming up. So here's some of the details on this. I thought we could just do it like this and save ourselves a little bit of class time. So it's due on the day it's due. If I recycle this, day would be slightly different. So I'm using the fall 2021 essay. Let's start with the first stuff. It's due when it's due, and I'm not crazy about things being late. So the easiest thing is to just get it in on time, right? Essay length. We're looking at a minimum of 4 double-spaced pages, a maximum of 6. You can get 4 pages on one of these questions. Keep it under 6. If you've got more to say it better. Make it clean, right? You can use words if you want, 1,000 words, 1,500 words. And although there's not necessarily a direct connection between how much you've written and your grade, there kind of is, right? 6 pages, you wrote 50% more than the absolute minimum. And you give yourself a chance to get a better grade and to add more details. And 5 pages, you've got 25% more than the absolute minimum. And 4 pages, it's the minimum. And less than 1,000 words, and I'm not interested in reading it, okay? At the end of your essay, make it easy for both of us. Include a word count. Footnotes don't count as words. Title doesn't count as words. Your bibliography doesn't count as words. I just mean the detail of the text itself. Let's talk about your sources. You're expected to use all your class materials that we've utilized at this point. And you need to have 2 secondary sources and 4 primary sources. And you should expect every missing source to be roughly a grade deduction. So make sure you know what a secondary source is, make sure you know what a primary source is, and make sure I see them in there. This is supposed to be a document discussion of at least 6 sources. You don't have to discuss them all equally. Some of them you can go into detail with, others you can just kind of mention, and this one helps support that point too. But I need to see at least 6. Just like the page numbers, 7 sources showed you did a little more work. 8's even more than that, right? Maps. Everybody's got to use a map that demonstrates that you have some kind of sense about how your particular essay is related to world geography. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. Find a map from Google. Use the quote or use the URL. Tell me where you got it from. Find someone who's already made a map. If you like making maps, make your own. Use the map that I handed out for the map quizzes. But include a map in your paper someplace that helps me understand where you're talking about. What I do not want is a map stapled, or I guess in this particular case, just added at the end. Okay? That tells me you forgot about it and you threw it in at the last second. Put it in the text someplace. Refer to it. As you can see, map number 2 demonstrates, such and such points. Now, I don't want you to spend too much time, editing it, making it to look perfect. But we're in the day and age where, Microsoft Word has really made that stuff easy for us. So just include it in the text, right? Images. Images are cool if they give you something to talk about. Just don't give me pictures to try to think, I'm going to get to 4 pages, right? You got to have 1,000 words, whether you got pictures or not. But if the pictures give you something to talk about in the text, they're useful. Now, let me make it clear. When we're talking about primary sources, those sources need to be written primary sources, okay? Not a bunch of pictures. Graphs, charts, tables, nobody ever does it, so it gets noticed. Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, they make it so easy. You guys ought to do it once in a while. Okay, citations. A lot of y'all have asked me about this. Various disciplines use different citation styles. History uses Turabian, which is a variation of Chicago. I'm not worried about it. You got this link here that should take us to... Oh no, that should have been floating on top. Bring that back. That link there should take you to a Turabian style guide. I am not worried about whether or not you've got author's first name first or whatever. I want that to be consistent. What I want to see your citations, and I want to see footnotes the way I asked you to do them in that video however long ago. There we go, floating that thing on top. But right here is how you do them. All right. The first time you cite something, give me the full citation. Or that's the proper way. The first time, you can do it just like this. Author, title, page. Each time after that, author and page. Each time after that, title and page. And drop that stuff down into a footnote. This is a formal essay. I don't expect first drafts. Okay? You're going to have a required peer review. So this first part, right, just kind of the details of the source. Let's skip the middle part. We'll come back to it. This stuff here, it's what I just told you, except it's more in a bullet point thing. This is the checklist I'm going to use when I grade your papers. You'd be crazy not to use it while I write your paper. Word count, is it long enough? Do you address the question? Did you have a strong thesis? Do you have an introduction, conclusion, topic sentences? Do you describe what happened and tell me why it's important? Do you have evidence? Do you have adequate number of citations? Chronology, time. I've never asked you to memorize a date. I want you to use dates in your paper. I want to know that you know when things happened. Some of the fancy terminology we've used in class. And then your writing, right? Things like topic sentences, flow, clean writing. It's easy enough. And this stuff down here, this is stuff I used to tell people after their essays were graded. And then I decided I needed to tell you beforehand. First off, although there's a lot of different ways to do it, most of y'all are going to benefit from a thesis statement that says, in this essay, I will demonstrate. And I know that some of the English 101 people aren't crazy about that particular style of thesis statement, but some of y'all just need to stick with it. It is an argumentative essay in which you're using the evidence from our book to demonstrate your points. Do not forget, you're demonstrating points and you're making an argument. Your essay ought to be organized as a discussion of the historical evidence. All right? Just don't mention it, discuss it. And there's a reason why history is a traditional way into law school, because the writing is very similar. And just kind of think about it that way. You're trying to make an argument for a case. Here's the evidence for the case to prove your case. So just kind of go along that way. Wikipedia. It's a great place to start. It's a great place to get some ideas about what's going on, but it's not a source. So don't cite it in your footnotes. And I'll just keep moving. When I'm grading your essays, I'm going to tell you right now, the very first thing I'm going to look at is your footnotes. I'm going to see how many sources you've included. I'm going to see whether you've included any source. And sometimes I can give you a pretty good guess on a grade based on the footnotes. For example, if I don't see any footnotes and I don't think your essay is actually based on any historical documents, I know not to worry about it. And you guys can kind of imagine how it goes on up from there. So just make sure I have those sources. Yeah, I shouldn't have to say this, but I will. I expect you to have written every single word in your essay that's not in quotes. Don't try to present something to me as your original writing if it's not. And wordsmith, polish. That's going to be the thing that's really going to separate the B's from the A's. The A's are going to have polished it and messed with things a little bit. All right, so those are the details. One thing I forgot to say is I want to see a bibliography at the end. I want to be able to flip to your last page and just see what sources you used. I know all the sources came from Worlds of History. Don't list that. List out the sources individually. Okay, that is the mechanics of things. And really, it's a souped up thought piece. Okay, it's a souped up thought piece. Let's talk about the questions. And I tried to come up with some new and more interesting questions for y'all. Let me know what you think, because if they're too crazy, we can change them. The first question. I use this for my political philosophy class. I love this question. In a paragraph of less than half a page, describe the purpose of your major and introduce its connection to ancient world history. I love that. Getting us to think about why are we here in the first place, and how do we connect this ancient history stuff to the point of me being here. And if your major is undeclared, I can help you with that. But you're going to need to come up to think about some hook, right? Maybe instead of the point of my major, the point of college or the point of general education is. All right? And this one might also appear on your second formal essay if you don't try it now. So if you like it and you're not sure, I may have it around again. I like this one. The second question. Trying to find ways to make some of the questions in this class a little bit more contemporary to stuff's going on. So, the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 and now 2021 has functioned as a catalyst for many types of changes: environmental changes, cultural changes, economic changes, political changes, technological changes. Changes at every imaginable level, at the global, at the national, at the community, at the individual. And it's unclear whether we're closer to the introduction or the conclusion of the changes. We don't really know where we're at. So, has studying ancient history helped you process or gain perspective on anything that you've been living through since the spring of 2020? Now, I know that's a crazy question, right? But it's just really kind of, we've been living under some very fast-paced change times since spring 2020. And I am curious whether history in this class has helped us to understand any of it. So, has it helped us put it in perspective? And of course, in order to answer the question, the answer to the question has to be yes. And then you have to answer something. You just can't say, no, not at all. Thank you. Okay. Question 3. Pick an issue. And I have contemporary and question marks because I think that's probably what you need to do. But I'm open. Pick an issue or a subject you already know something about and would like to understand better. In what ways has ancient history provided you with some kind of insight onto the matter? Has ancient history helped you understand something you were already interested in? Have you found your ability to study history a useful and practical skill? And really what I'm trying to get at this question is, why are we doing this? Right? Has your study of history helped you with any other things? Okay, so you can see from the first 3 questions that I have, I really like that big, like, what are we doing here? If it was up to me, the only question that I would ask y'all is what did you learn? Then let me back up. It is up to me, and I have tried that, and it's been a total disaster. So I'm trying to find different ways of asking that question. What have you learned? All right, now questions 4, 5, and 6. They're a little different. They're a little less big and asking the big questions. Question 4. Consider the entire time span before the year 500. And come up with your own thesis. During this period, did, whatever. This is kind of your own thing, right? And support your argument with specific examples from the readings and viewings. I know that this particular question is probably even more out there than others. It's asking you to come up with your own thesis statement. And I want you to clear it with me before you go any further with it. But the whole idea here is to try to get you to think about something of your own interest and related to ancient history. 5. It's probably the easiest question, or at least it's the easiest question to understand. Describe and analyze the most important change that occurred at the global level before 500. So you got a lot of different things to pick from. What's been the most important thing that happened in the history of the world before the year 500? Make your argument, use your materials, and move on. And then 6, you don't like any of these questions, come up with your own. I don't like being surprised. So let me know about it. But anyway, these are the questions. Let me just kind of lay out a few things that are not on here, because I wanted to switch it up a little bit. I used to have a question that said something along the lines of make an argument for more attention to be paid to the history of women in an ancient history class. I used to have a question along the same lines that was make an argument for whether or not the history of women improved or declined as a result of, during this time period. I've had questions about explain the rise of large religions and, pick a religious tradition. So this is a drawn out way of saying those questions aren't off limits. Of course, that's the stuff we've been talking about. So if you're really interested in religion, if you're really interested in the relationships between men and women, if you're really interested in legal code stuff, just pick the documents that you want to do and then work it into one of these questions. All right, one more thing, at least I think it's one more thing. There's a lot of ways to go about constructing this essay. And one of the ways to do it is to pick a question or develop a question that you think is particularly interesting, and then start gathering the sources from our book that you think you'll use to discuss it and move on. Totally legit. But there's another totally legit way to do it too. It's a couple of different totally legit ways, but there's two main ones. The other way is to open up your book and figure out which of those sources you really understood. And I don't know what question I'm answering, but I'm using these sources because these are the ones I understood. Which of these questions can I answer with these sources, right? There's a few different ways to do it too. All right. This seems like a good place to stop. I just wanted to bring this up so you guys can get a jump start on this assignment. You can think about these questions. I get it, these questions are kind of big, but I want us thinking about these questions because college is supposed to be kind of big. You're supposed to start learning how to think about some new things. And I'll see y'all in class.